The radar was supposed to be watching the sky. Instead, it was staring at a lie. Somewhere in the darkness above central Iran, one of the most sophisticated air defense networks in the Middle East was tracking hundreds of incoming threats. Radar operators watched their screens fill with targets. New contacts appeared every second. Some moved slowly like drones. Others accelerated at impossible speeds. The entire system suddenly looked under attack. But there was one terrifying problem. None of those targets were real. Miles away from the Iranian operators, an invisible battle had already begun. No missiles had exploded. No aircraft had crossed the border. No warning sirens had sounded. Yet the first strike was already landing. Not against a runway, not against a bunker, but against the eyes of the defense system itself. For decades, military planners understood a simple rule of warfare. Before you destroy an enemy's weapons, you destroy their ability to see. A blind defender becomes predictable. A blind defender makes mistakes. And in modern warfare, a single mistake can open the door to catastrophe. On this night, that rule was about to be demonstrated with brutal precision. Deep inside Iran, air defense crews monitored the airspace surrounding one of the country's most strategically important regions. Every sweep of the radar painted a picture of the skies above them. Every signal was analyzed. Every contact was evaluated. Normally, the process was routine. Tonight was different. Operators began noticing unusual returns appearing at extreme distances. At first, they looked insignificant. Small signals, weak echoes, the kind of contacts that could easily be dismissed as interference. Then more appeared. And more. Within minutes, isolated returns transformed into what looked like a coordinated aerial approach. The operators leaned closer to their screens. The contacts behaved strangely. They appeared in one location, vanished, and reappeared somewhere else. Some traveled in ways that violated normal flight patterns. Others seemed to split into multiple targets. Every attempt to classify them produced conflicting results. Confusion spread across the command network. What exactly were they looking at? A drone swarm? Electronic interference. The opening phase of a larger attack? No one could say for certain, but uncertainty is dangerous in warfare. The longer commanders wait, the greater the risk of being surprised. And whoever created these mysterious radar contacts understood that fact perfectly. Far from the Iranian coastline, beyond the immediate attention of the defense network, specialized electronic warfare systems were already shaping the battlefield. No bombs were being dropped. No missiles were being launched. Instead, reality itself was being manipulated. Modern electronic warfare is often compared to hacking, but the truth is far more unsettling. Imagine standing in a crowded room filled with mirrors. Every reflection looks real. Every image appears authentic. Yet only one reflection actually represents reality. Now imagine having only seconds to decide which reflection is genuine. That was the dilemma facing the radar crews. The system continued detecting targets, but confidence in those detections was collapsing. Every signal could be real. Every signal could be fake. And the inability to distinguish between the two was becoming a weapon. As the confusion intensified, commanders faced a critical decision: ignore the contacts and risk allowing a real threat to slip through, or react aggressively and reveal the full capabilities of their defense network. Either option was attractive, yet hesitation was becoming impossible. The strategic importance of the region demanded action. This was not just another military installation. This area represented a critical layer in Iran's broader security architecture. Air bases, command facilities, and infrastructure of national importance all depended on the effectiveness of the surrounding defenses. If those defenses failed, the consequences would extend far beyond a single radar site. The pressure on commanders mounted. Every passing minute increased the sense of urgency. Every new radar contact intensified the uncertainty. And then the defense network made the decision its opponents had been waiting for. The radars increased their activity. Power levels rose. Search patterns intensified. Sensitive systems worked harder to identify the growing number of contacts appearing across the screens. From the perspective of the operators, the move made perfect sense. If the threat picture becomes unclear, gather more information. But from the perspective of the attackers, the response was exactly what they wanted, because every additional burst of radar energy revealed something valuable. Location. Position. Capabilities. The more aggressively the system searched, the easier it became to understand how the defense network was operating. The hunters were learning everything they needed to know, and the defenders were unknowingly helping them. The situation continued escalating. Screens remained crowded. Target indicators multiplied. Operators struggled to separate genuine threats from electronic illusions. Reports flowed between command centers. Questions outnumbered answers. Was this a reconnaissance operation? Was it preparation for a missile strike? Was a larger attack already underway? Nobody knew. But one fact was becoming increasingly clear. Something was forcing the defense network into a reactive posture. Instead of controlling the battlefield, the defenders were responding to events dictated by someone else. And that loss of initiative is often the first warning sign of a much larger problem. As the night progressed, the electronic ghosts continued their performance. They danced across radar displays. They consumed attention. They consumed resources. Most importantly, they consumed time. Every second spent chasing false targets was a second not spent preparing for a real one. That imbalance was slowly creating a dangerous vulnerability. Somewhere beyond the horizon, hidden from immediate detection, the next stage of the operation was already moving into position. Unlike the radar contacts flooding the screens, this threat was real. It was not designed to create confusion. It was not designed to distract. It was designed to exploit the confusion that already existed. The defenders could not see it yet. Their attention remained fixed on the growing storm of electronic deception. They were looking in the wrong direction. And that was precisely the objective. Because while hundreds of imaginary targets dominated the radar picture, a genuine threat was quietly approaching the battlefield. The threat moving closer with every passing second. A threat that had been waiting patiently for the perfect moment. And as Iran's air defense operators fought desperately to separate reality from illusion, the true attack was finally about to begin. What they believed was the battle was only the setup. The real strike was still coming. The real attack began the moment the defenders thought they had regained control. For a brief instant, the radar screens looked normal again. The swarm of mysterious contacts that had dominated the displays began to fade. False targets disappeared one after another. The electronic ghosts that had consumed the attention of the defense network suddenly vanished into silence. To the operators inside the command center, it felt like relief. The interference was ending. The confusion was clearing. Finally, they could focus on the actual threat. But that moment of relief was the final piece of the trap. Because while the radar crews were recovering from the electronic assault, something very real was already moving toward them at tremendous speed. Hundreds of miles away, high above the region, a missile separated from its carrier platform. For a fraction of a second, it simply fell. Gravity pulled it downward through the thin upper atmosphere. Then the guidance system awakened. The weapon stabilized. Its trajectory adjusted, and its engine pushed it forward with terrifying force. The missile was not aiming for a city. It was not targeting a runway. It was not even focused on the broader military base. It had only one objective: the radar. The eyes of the entire defensive system. Military planners often compare modern warfare to a boxing match. Most people focus on the knockout punch. Professionals focus on blinding the opponent first. Because once the eyes are gone, every other weapon becomes less effective. Every missile battery becomes slower. Every interceptor becomes less accurate. Every commander becomes less informed. The radar site represented far more than a collection of antennas and computers. It represented awareness itself. Destroy it, and everything around it becomes vulnerable. As the missile accelerated toward its target, the defense network finally identified something unusual. The small contact appeared on the screen. Unlike the electronic ghosts from earlier, this signal behaved differently. It was stable, consistent, real. Operators immediately understood what they were seeing. The threat they had been preparing for had finally arrived. Alarms echoed through command stations. Tracking systems locked onto the incoming object. Calculations raced through computers. Speed, altitude, trajectory, impact prediction. Every number pointed toward the same conclusion. The contact was approaching rapidly, and time was running out. The radar began transmitting powerful tracking signals into the sky. Invisible beams searched for the incoming target. The operators hoped to establish a firing solution before it was too late. But every transmission created another problem. The missile could see the radar too. Each pulse of energy acted like a beacon. Each signal revealed the exact location of the system trying to destroy it. The more aggressively the radar searched, the more information it provided to its attacker. The battlefield had become a deadly paradox. The defenders needed the radar to survive, but using the radar also helped guide the threat toward them. Inside the command center, crews prepared interceptor missiles. Launch systems activated. Targeting solutions updated. Emergency procedures began. Every individual involved understood the stakes. If the radar survived, the defense network could continue fighting. If it fell, the entire area would become exposed. The countdown had begun. The distance between attacker and target continued shrinking. Every second mattered. Then another danger emerged. Not from the sky, from the ground. While attention remained focused on the incoming missile, a completely different threat was moving through the darkness. Small, quiet, almost invisible. Unlike fighter aircraft or ballistic missiles, these machines were designed to avoid attention altogether. They flew low. They followed terrain. They remained beneath the focus of systems built to monitor much larger threats. In many ways, their simplicity was their greatest strength. Expensive defenses are often optimized to defeat expensive weapons. Sometimes the most effective attack comes from something unexpectedly ordinary. The small machines advanced toward the perimeter of the military installation. No dramatic explosions announced their arrival. No warning sirens revealed their presence. The defenders were looking toward the horizon. The danger was already next door. As the incoming missile continued descending from above, the second phase of the operation moved into position. Two threats, one objective. Overwhelm the system from multiple directions at the same time. Military history repeatedly demonstrates the same lesson. A defense can often survive one problem. Surviving several simultaneous problems is much harder. That principle was about to be tested. The first impact came without warning. Critical support equipment suddenly failed. Moments later, another strike damaged additional components connected to the radar network. Systems began reporting faults. Status indicators changed color. Warnings spread across control consoles. Operators struggled to understand what was happening. Some believed technical failures were occurring. Others suspected sabotage. Regardless of the cause, the result was the same. The radar's effectiveness was collapsing. Components that had functioned perfectly minutes earlier were no longer responding correctly. Communication links became unreliable. Tracking quality deteriorated. The defenders were losing the ability to coordinate at precisely the worst possible moment. Outside, smoke began rising above the installation. Inside, confusion intensified. The missile was still coming. The radar was degrading, and nobody could fully understand why. Then the situation crossed a critical threshold. The system's ability to engage the incoming threat was effectively lost. The defenders had run out of options. The final seconds arrived. The missile continued descending. Faster, closer, closer, closer still. Operators watched helplessly as the tracking picture deteriorated around them. Years of training, millions of dollars in equipment, layers of sophisticated technology.